Welcome, Brian and Shane. How's it going?
Doing good. Yeah.
Oh, we're staying busy.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about you guys.
A little bit about us. Well, I'm Brian. I've been investing in real estate for the last almost 8 years. I started with sub two and terms deals. Some of those were fix and flips. And then I got an RV parks in 2022. Um, got my first park I partnered with a park in Ohio, then got another park in Nevada. Then we're doing parks together as in the fund. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I also do trust for people. On my legal side, I have a legal business, help people with trust and asset protection, and keeping their stuff protected.
Cool.
Yeah.
Brian's always being modest. He's always got stuff up his sleeve he doesn't tell us about. Uh, so yeah, Shane Thompson here. I've been doing real estate. Well, I guess it's like 2014, 2015. I took a long hiatus because I lost a bunch of money through some bad partnerships. So I took about 7, 8 years off and I got back into it about 3.5 years ago. Started off with some private money lending, private partnerships, did a fixer flipper too, got into pad splits, but then as a lot of our experiences go, like, oh, these single families are fun or one-off deals are great, but it's slow. You're only making a little bit of money at a time. And then connected to Brian, and we were talking about RV parks, and because I was just getting inclined to it, and he'd already been starting this journey, and we decided to start our fund just because we figured one, we like RV parks. It's like a type of asset class that's like adjacent but similar to multifamily, where it scales faster, and it's a niche in itself that we only go RV parks specifically, not even mobile home parks anymore. And in our fund, we're I believe also niche in that we are trying to raise capital for other people's deals instead of our own. So we are really going all in on just that RV park focus. And as like a lot of us said, we've just transitioned into the bigger and better deals, and we think this is where it's at now.
Yeah, very, very cool. I'm kind of similar. I'm a little behind you guys in that single family homes are great, right, as a gateway drug, but it's just the amount of work involved in managing all these different houses. And I've been looking for different assets. Multifamily never really spoke to me, but RV parks, I think, are just it's a different type of you don't have a building to manage or a large scale building. So Brian, when you were doing the fix and flip, and then how did you transition and actually get into buying RV parks?
I transitioned to it. Well, I met a friend that was doing it. He kind of showed me what he's doing, asked him to show me the profit and everything. Then I flew out to go see it and see the parks he was looking at, and then we partnered up. Um, it was way different from doing fix and flips because, well, you can do, one house or like one park, which is equivalent to like, let's say 50 houses.
Mhm.
So it was kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I am having trouble with because usually you'll see people they're running 4 or 5 fix and flips at once, but
Hmm.
here it's one RV park, right? One asset, but it has many different pads, so you technically are doing a bunch of different units all at the same time.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So then, Shane, when you met Brian, you just jumped directly into starting a fund?
Yeah, it's Brian's fault. Yeah, because I was just getting into like the RV space because like funny enough, uh little like off topics, like my dad was a park ranger for 45 years. So like I grew up in Parks and Rec outdoor stuff. So I was inclined by RV parks because obviously trying to go real estate. I was like, well, this is like multifamily, there's bigger dollars, but it's not the suit and tie class A all the time. So I was excited by that. And then I don't remember how me and Brian, you and I had connected at some point. I think he got my contact, he called me up. And then we actually had ran an acquisitions team for about a year before we got into the fund. So we were trying to do just buy and acquire. We had several other partners. So we're, doing the cold calling, doing the outreach, speaking to brokers, speaking to off-market deals, trying to get that. And that went okay. It was kind of, a challenge as we worked through the growing pains of the membership of the team. But the pain point became like, hey, we really need capital for these deals. Even if we get good terms, we still need couple million here, a couple million there to do a couple deals at a time. And then I believe because Brian had did a prior fund for other affordable housing projects he was on, he said, "Why don't you start another one?" And of course, I was a bit timid, but Brian, luckily, having legal background, having prior experience, like took the initiative to get it started, and then it just kind of made sense. So we just leaned into the fun, and we initially started as a vessel to fuel our own deals, but then we learned quickly that to make a fund be successful and actually be like large and actually it in itself is a business, and to try to run an acquisitions team and run a fund, those are two separate teams which require a bunch of time and a bunch of money that we didn't want to spend. So we decided, no, let's go in on the fund, especially since it's it's a very costly thing to manage. But we have so many deals in our common communities, and we have some good operators, and we're meeting people online. Like, why don't we just lean into the fund, grow it, and then just start deploying on other operators? So we will scale by association, and we'll scale by networking.
Yeah. So I guess the fun thing seems kind of daunting to me because I've never done anything like that before. So explain that process. Like, how do you decide now's the time to open a fund? Like, when does it make sense?
Well, because there's always a need for capital to acquire more parks. So you either have to go talk to other private money lenders or capital raisers, or do it yourself. So the need is always there if you want more properties, basically.
Right. So then what's like the minimum that you should have to actually start a fund?
Start a fund?
Yeah.
Well, ideally 50,000. Oh, you can do all the legal work and get some marketing going, and then get it going properly.
Is it easier to raise money when you have a fund in place?
I think so. Yeah. Well, I don't know because when I did it before, I didn't really have an official fund going, but it seemed easier back then because it was actually, well, it was my warm market as well. But now we're doing mostly cold market, and it's a little more work, but I think the fund gives you more credibility. So, and plus you're doing it under the compliance of the SEC, so it makes it a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that, as Brian said. I mean, there isn't really like a minimum, right? But like obviously, as Brian said, like there are expensive legal fees, and lucky for us, Brian has an legal experience, so he's able to save some of that cost. I think in our fund experience now, what we're learning is like this, a lot of people are daunted by the setup, and the setup was kind of the easy part. It was like long and monotonous, but it's like you just do the work and then it's done. And
Yeah.
we're at a part now where like our next level of growth is it's like cold outreach and it's perfecting the sales pitch. And so we spend a lot of time now on like how do you find more clients? And that's really, I think, where I tell people that a fund is a business, because you have to generate leads and then foster those leads back to you, and then you know coax them through the process to be into a commitment, and that takes time. And that's where I think people um, don't realize that the fund is a business. So if you already have a great network, it may be an easy sell. But if you're trying to scale like we are, and also that we're using credibility to go to other people's deals, you got to have like a fund and have structure in place and be ready to ring in money. I think just trying to raise money from your local connection is great. That's what Brian has had good success. That's how our fund initially had good success, was your friends and family. At some point, they're tapped out. So
Yeah.
you got to find strangers, and that's where like the practice and the reps of marketing and sales and lead funnels takes time. That's where like a lot of the energy, and that's what made us transition fairly recently, about 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, to say, hey, to run this fund successfully, we can't try to acquire, underwrite, and chase deals and also chase investors. So that's when we decided just to make that switch, because we learned how much work it is to actually run the fund.
Yeah. It's totally a business of its own.
Yeah, that's what I'm realizing. So when you think of like raising capital, you think it's just the operator who's doing it. So the fix and flippers going out and trying to, no, that's not how it goes. It's like a full-time job by itself. Yeah.
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 So what, getting back to RV park, so what drew you to that asset class?
Well, for me, I love going RVing, going camping out there. Plus, I found it's the best cash flowing asset class out there in real estate. It has the least maintenance among all the other asset classes.
Mhm.
And parks are getting fuller and fuller. People love it. They go out there and they enjoy the parks. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, similar for mine. Obviously, grew up outdoors, love outdoors, was an avid hunter, outdoor my whole life. So I did that. The whole outdoor aspect made sense. But as Brian touched on, I think it was very exciting when I started to see the numbers that like an RV park, is usually a fraction of the cost of a conventional Class B, Class A multifamily,
Mhm.
but with at minimum similar returns, but typically we're seeing like 2 to 4 times the returns we were seeing with a fraction of the buy-in. So we knew like, going into RVs, like heck, it would take only a few RVs to get like life-changing money as opposed to what it would take to do like one multifamily and I'd have to raise 50 million for a deal. Whereas in an RV space, we'll raise 20 million, we'll get 10 deals. So
Hmm.
now we're diversified, we're making more cash flow, and we had to spend this. So like our IRR and our cash on cash would typically be higher in that scenario. So that was what was exciting to me. And then also just, I think the last point was, which we had a call with, and funny enough, an investor a few weeks ago, was how creative parks can be. You're not really capped in how you make money. There's a demand for it. I mean, you can do it. Like we talk about helicopter rides, ATV rides, horseback riding, food, ice, water, propane. Like everything could be a potential upsell. So you're not really limited to just rent and the amount of space you have. I mean, there's quite a few parks I see like they make more money with their additional services than they actually do on just their rents alone. So like you could take an average performing spot with limited growth, but have so many ways to be creative, and I could turn it from like a negative to like a very high cash flowing property without having to really add or build things.
Yeah, like one
Yeah,
lady we know, she sells cookies at her park. Any evening. Yeah.
that's cool. You got a
Yeah, the
bakery at
cookies
the
that are
park.
cookies at her park, and God, what does she makes like 35, 50,000 a year on cookies?
Just
Like
cookies.
just delivering cookies. Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Man, that is
crazy.
so cool. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's insane. You
Yeah,
ever
you
put
can't do that
laundromats in
all
there?
over the park.
Like laundry?
What's that?
You ever put laundry in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of places have laundry. That is another cash flow for quite a few people.
Yeah.
I think I was most impressed. One of our other colleagues who we know in the RV space was looking at some parks. I swear, I heard it and I always tell that story, but I think she said like the owner was taking like 60 or 80 grand home from ice, like under the table. Like he was paying his salary just on ice sales. I was like, this is insane. Just selling bags of ice.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, we just saw,
I was like, this is crazy.
yeah, then we just saw a park where they're selling tickets from, in the community to come to their pool.
Selling tickets. So people that aren't even staying at the RV park, they can come to the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they paid for parking. Yeah, so they had like a big pool that, right? I know what you're talking about, right? Yeah, we looked at it not too long ago. A giant pool and parking, and then like they promote it in the community, and then they just have like day passes, like almost like a water, like a wave pool or amusement park. They just charge for day rates.
So
Yeah.
it's almost like the RV park itself is secondary, like the camping part is secondary.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's amazing that you can just the flexibility on these things.
Yeah.
So let's say I wanted to go out and I wanted to get into the RV park space as an operator. What kind of things would I need to look at for an RV park, and what kind of team would I need around me?
Well, you want a management team at least, management, maybe a park host, and then depends on if you how much you want to be there or not.
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay, then yeah,
Yeah.
you need management and a park host, and maybe an acquisitions person to help you out.
yeah, I know because we've tried both ends of the scale. At one point, we had a very large team, like 7 to 8 of us, and it was way more than we needed at our current operations. I would say as Brian was saying, if I'm putting a number to Brian saying what maybe 2 or 3 people on your like in-house team, and then each park is maybe depending on the size, a person and a half to operate or 2 people.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to not be like the operator and just kind of be like the owner,
Mhm.
you're probably going into a larger park, and I'm thinking you're probably going to be at least like probably close to person have 2 people on your site, whether it's like a one full time and a part time or a full time and a few part timers.
What is a park host?
Well, they're usually a person that just stays there. They get a space for free, but they basically kind of watch the place and greet guests as they come in and show them where their space is. Yeah.
That's crazy. They just their perk is that they just stay there for free.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they do get paid too, but obviously you're paying less because you're offering like in exchange for like free or discounted place to stay.
Mhm.
Can you like kind of part time manage my park? And A lot of, I guess it's a very common thing, as Brian can allude to, but a lot of people travel the country, find a park they like, see about
Oh
being a
yeah.
host for 3 or 6 months, and they just stay there. And then they move to the next park and find a place where they can be the host and go 3 or 6 months there. So that's how they would travel in essence, and save money or do it for free.
Yeah, there's little groups of people that do this. They just go from park to park every 3 to 6 months, and they find a new park, and that's what they do.
So they just call ahead of time to call the management team and say, hey, do you need a park host for these dates?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And there's some like I think online community forums and online message threads where they're just interacting with each other. And some host are like, hey, I'm leaving. Do you want to come and I'll take your spot? So I mean there's communities around it as well. So
Yeah. And people love doing it because they get a free spot and they get to be at a new place, new
Mhm.
climate, new weather, and maybe a new scenery. So
Yeah.
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 Just get to
Right.
see the
I'm correct.
country of
That's
the
what you have
world.
at your parks, right? You have like park hosts at your two other parks. Yeah.
Yep. They work out great.
And that can be to kind of touch on that can be um in addition to or instead of like a larger management company, depending on the size of parks and what your plans are scaling, right? If it's one park, it makes sense, but sometimes if you're going to be like multiple parks, your plans to grow in scales and acquisitions team,
Mhm.
some of our other colleagues, they're getting managers who are getting good, and those managers are like then hopping to the parks and like training staff and hiring. So they're actually building like infrastructure within their RV team. So there is caveats depending on what your goal is, whether it's one or two parks or like build like, buy a half dozen or a dozen. There may be reasons to actually go like a full dedicated employee. But I think when you start, if you can get a park host and do like a third party service, maybe some bookkeeping here and there, you can save a lot of money. If you can get, as long as you hire the right people, because obviously you don't hire the right people, then as in any
Yeah.
business, you're spending a lot of money chasing tails, catching up for all the mistakes that are happening. But
Yeah.
it can be and it's a very common option that people use in some capacity.
hmm
Okay. So it just really doesn't take that much at all just to run this business.
That's true. Yeah. It
Um,
can be almost 100% automated as well.
how would you automate it?
Well, you'd automate the reservation system. You could automate incoming and going guests. You can automate, trash pickup and all that other stuff, landscaping. Um, yeah, as long as the building's automated, everything else can be automated as well.
Yeah, and obviously we can touch on it later, but then there's colleagues of ours going into robots and
Yeah.
drones doing everything. So like they'll have like one human on site running a whole park. So
Right?
that's a different topic. But yeah, I mean, you could depends how creative you want to get. You could be fully automated with like not having like humans on site. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to Zach about that. It's a very cool project.
Yep.
we're all excited because we're all like, I don't like they have a big vision and like we see it, but like it's hard to see it unless it's your own vision. But like
Right.
they're excited by it. We're excited by it too. And I know like me and Brian supporting them and we're kind of
Mhm.
trying to work with them on stuff, but
Yeah.
we're excited to see that's going to be a long journey, but it's going to be hopefully very frugal at the end and very, very unique in its ability when it's all said and done.
Yeah, for sure. The fact that it's got a saltwater lagoon, that's pretty cool too.
hmm Yeah.
All right, so we got the park host for your management team. What does that look like?
Well, they're usually full time. They're in an office or in an RV. They're managing the place. They're usually doing some accounting or bookkeeping. And then, of course, like Shane said, they're training people as well.
Mm. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, there are a couple of ways to go there. It's like there are a couple like big national organizations who manage RV parks exclusively. They'll do all your bookkeeping, automating. They will also like supposedly hire and fire your local people on staff. And I say supposedly because we've also heard some horror stories where people have hired these organizations and they're just too far removed that they're not really engaged enough to manage your park. So we've heard pros and cons of both, but I think as if you grow and you're going to get multiple parks, I think it makes sense probably to like actually bring on like a staff person who becomes like maybe a supervisor or like maybe like a manager trainer who can like grow a park and they can leave and go to the next park and do the same thing and then like hire their replacement and train the replacement and then they move on. And then in that way you're removing like third party management. to capacity. A lot of people start a third party management just because it's easy when you start, because they'll handle all the bookkeeping, the software systems. But so then again, you are trusting another party to manage your parks, and I've heard pros and cons both ways to that aspect. And it can also be very pricey too. So depending on the size of your park, they may take, God, I've seen like going up to like 25-30% fees. It's been huge sometimes. So
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah.
well, I don't think it starts away. I think that's where we start to see the caveats come in. It's like, oh, it's only like 8 or 10%, which is kind of typical. But then it's like after 6 months, there's a new fee, or after a year, you renew, but it's a different fee. And like all these
Yeah,
additions, eventually all these additional fees and services turn into these huge, huge bills. But
yeah, that's how they get you.
we've
They
seen it
get
go
you
both
in.
ways. Yeah.
They get you in for cheap. All right, so then you got your management team. So that's after you've acquired everything. You have your park host. It's kind of like your boots on the ground. Uh, for acquisitions. So typically, when I think of acquisitions, I'm always thinking about like wholesaling real estate, where it's essentially a numbers game. What does your acquisitions team look like, and how do they operate?
So far we have a cold caller, and he's been doing pretty well. And then we have Shane that helps with underwriting. So Shane and like cold caller, they both do underwriting, and then so we're doing like direct to seller outreach. We found that brokers, they're usually in the way and they don't have all the answers. And we even found that they make up numbers on the what do you call it? Their offering sheets.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We've learned that a lot. But
Yeah.
going to that point too, so as I said earlier, we don't really have an acquisitions team anymore. Like
Right.
we were like 8 team deep, right? And then we
Yeah.
cut it down to like 3.5 of us, which we found to be sweet spot. We got that recommendation and reassurance from some other people we know. About 3 to 4 is the max really want, at least at our size. So yeah, we quit the acquisition. So really, like our management is like investor outreach, not so
Mhm.
much as what we decided. Like you said,
Yeah.
if you're going to be in acquisitions, focus on your initial acquisitions the first few, perfect that, and then let us be your partner for the capital. And that's how
Yeah.
we will get our deal. So we're underwriting deals. By the time they hit our plate, they've already gone through ideally due diligence. They've already been underwritten. They've already been vetted. There's already been terms and LOIs accepted. So we're coming to the table as like the funding partner. We're not so much in the initial acquisition. So that team
Right.
themselves, depending who they are, they will have their own adjacent or whatever they agree to their own management operating team. So each park that we look at could be potentially a different or slightly different operation.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Mm.
if I'm brand new, I know nothing about real estate at all, and I want to decide I want to get into RV parks. What is the best way to get started?
Best way. Hmm. Well, I'd say start with a really small park and just see if you like it first. Then if you like it, maybe partner up with somebody else and then go from there.
What's a really small park? Like how many pads?
Like 20 spaces.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And there's a couple ways that question. So you could, if you want to like start small and get your hands dirty and figure out the nuances so that when you go bigger, you could speak to it very easily. Otherwise, if you buy slightly larger, I say like 50 pads. 50 pads is still sort of small, but it's kind of like maybe the realm where you can potentially outsource some of that. But you're still gonna have to, in that case, if you're gonna give up the work yourself, you're gonna have to have more capital to manage that. So I would
Right.
say, as piggyback Brian, either go small and be the work yourself, or if you go slightly larger, find partners and partner people who are already doing it. Just make it a lot easier and kind
Mhm.
of be the grunt below the threshold there, so you can like
Mhm.
learn by association, but not have to be responsible for all the work or all the capital.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely some advice that I would have given myself back then is find someone doing what it is that you want to do versus trying to go out and just do the Burr method all by yourself and make a ton of mistakes like I did.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, the birds attract it because like it's like the most popular thing, and there's like these big chunks of quick cash,
Yeah.
also big chunks of like I lost my money as well. So
Yeah, and especially doing renovations, and if you're gonna do it, you gotta go find these distressed houses. It's just a ton of work. Not something I enjoy doing.
absolutely not.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess what's some advice you would give to yourself knowing what you know now when you're first getting started? Like, what would you tell yourself when you're first getting started?
When you're first getting started,
Yeah.
I would say tell people what you're doing and then go find the money first, then go find a park. Tell people, hey, I'm looking for a park. I need to secure some money and get them to even commit to it. Commit to it like $10,000 or something.
Mhm.
So you can come back later and do what they initially committed to, like 50 or $100,000. And then when you find a park, you got like your first 10 or 15 investors. You get to call them back and then bring in the money.
So raise the
Yeah.
money first.
Raise the money
Yeah.
first. It makes it a whole lot easier.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's always caveats. People say, find the deal. If the deal is great, the money will come. I haven't seen that to be true. I very much
Right.
align with Brian that like we've had plenty of good deals, obviously in our communities, right? Some good deals that like people just don't want. So I think having money first and that can come from, whether you got raising capital or Brian's able to raise capital because he had a network from his other business. But like I said, that business was years of fostering relationships and getting capital together. So even though it wasn't for RVs, he had spent a lot of time building those relationships. So the capital is the longest part usually. So I mean, I would spend your time there. As we're all here, we're all talking about raising capital. I think that's the hardest thing that a lot of people don't do, and they're always this scramble to find it.
Mhm.
But no
Yeah.
one really trains. I mean, it's coming more fruition now, but like I was at one of our local meetups last week, and everyone's like, let's do like a cold calling for wholesaling, like hotline, hot hour.
Mhm.
I was like, what do we do a cold call hotline for like investor outreach? Because everyone's calling
Yeah.
for deals, but no one's ever calling for money. It's like, heck, if you called it, because like no one does, like you'd be so niche, like our community, and like if you started raising a few $1 million, you would trust me, you would find deals very quickly, but you won't find the money as quickly.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I started raising capital through friends and family, and essentially I've been raising money for 30 years, and so it was very easy to deploy that money. But then now it's like, all right, now I got to talk to these people I don't know. They don't know me, they
Mhm.
don't trust me, and they shouldn't yet. So, but it's been fun.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly what we're going through now, right? We hit some
Yeah.
friends and family, and that network slowly grows because you get
Hmm.
a degree of separation and grow by association. But
Yeah.
that is a slow process, and that's where it's like, how do you speed it up? Well, that's where you're doing a bunch of outreach. You're hiring tools. You're running
Hmm.
ads, but you got to get your name out there as many people as possible, and then try to make those people become your friends in essence, or trust you at the end of the day.
It's a lot of recordings of your face on Instagram and social media.
Oh God, don't get me started. Don't make it started on that.
Yeah, still not comfortable yet. I still can't do that thing where you're just like talking to a camera. This is easier.
Yeah.
At least it is for me. Cool. Well, what's the biggest mindset issue that you've had to get over?
Mindset issue. I also just keep going. We always think, oh, there's not enough money out there, or we think there's nobody that wants to do it. Hey, I'd say the money's out there. You just got to find the right people, talk to the right people, and keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the two big things that I learned was obviously just staying persistent because it can be a slow game raising capital, and obviously depending where you look and how you look, it can be faster or slower. So learning to get out there more, to find different networks, getting uncomfortable because like we keep finding money in the weird spots, like spots I would never have gone organically. So I'm like, okay, I got to get out there more. That's where I keep seeing it. And I think also is just understanding that like I think what we're really working on right now, me and Brian and our other members is like our marketing. So we're spending a lot of time being uncomfortable, like in front of the camera, talking to ourselves, or maybe talking. Lucky as a team, right? It
Yeah.
can be easier because we got reps in as we got to record calls such as this using each other. But now we're working into like solo content, and that's where like you're just in the room talking by yourself, and that's very weird. But like we delayed it. I Brian, what we delayed it for like a year. Like we talked
Oh,
about
yeah.
it, we talked about it. Like we'll do it next week. We'll do it next week. And it must have been a year without exaggeration. At one point, we had to say, "Mother effer, we just got to do it. We just have to do it. Just do something." And that's kind of how it
Yeah.
started. So now we do a lot of it, and it's still not pretty, but like we've come a long way in just like the 3 or 4 months of doing it, and there's still
Mhm.
like a confidence that's already acquired. So I can say with certainty that the people who are good at it probably just do it all the time and they just got
Yeah.
good at it, you know?
Yep.
And there's always going to be some people who just have the it factor. Don't get me wrong, but like you can get so much better just doing it a bunch of times, and it'll be horrible the first few hundred times it feels like, but it'll eventually feel organic and feel conversational when you're talking to yourself.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you both coming on and talking RV parks with me. Uh, how can people reach out to you and how can people work with you?
So they can work with easily. They can just reach out, go to go.wisechoicefund.com. That's go.wisechoicefund.com. Or on Instagram at the Brian Rice.
Mhm.
And then yeah, Shane.
Yeah, I think that's the best bet because as Brian said, that's our call booking link. Otherwise, for wisechoicefund.com is our website. You can look there as well. Our prettier website is which has our offer memorandum is offering at .wisechoice.com.
Okay.
So they're
Yeah.
all there, but you can find our calls and links from there, but that's where
Yeah.
our probably best bet is to reach out to us.
All right. We'll make sure to have those links in the description just to make it easier for everyone. Again, appreciate your time and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we'd love to come back. We could do more fun discussion too, get more in those details,
Oh yeah, for
especially
sure.
in the holidays where some of our content now is driven towards tax benefits, which are
Mhm.
similar but also different because we are fund to funds versus just a syndication too. So there's so many different topics we can go into on that whole fund side too, which is where we're trying to specialize in.
Yeah, we can
Mhm.
definitely have a conversation just solely around the fund. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks again, guys.
definitely.
Awesome.